All right, welcome to Unit 6, Day 5. We are going to be talking about solving rational equations. So, a rational equation contains two or more rational functions. When determining the value of the variable, you must remember to check for extraneous solutions. All right, so we're just going to jump into it. The steps are right here if you need to take a look at them. So, now we're going to jump right into these problems. All right, example number 1. What we're going to do is we're going to get to find out what my LCD is. And even though they're on separate sides of the equal sign, we're going to still look at our LCD for both of them. And they have nothing in common. So my LCD is x plus 1 and then x minus 3. And now what we're going to do is we're going to find my domain. We're going to see what values of x that it cannot be. So x cannot equal negative 1 and positive 3. Because if you plug them in, it's going to give you 0. And you can't divide by 0. So now what we're going to do is, with problems like this, when a fraction is equal to a fraction, we're going to cross multiply. And it doesn't matter which side you put them on. Alright, so now we're going to solve. We're going to find the value of the variable. So we're going to distribute. So I get 3x minus 9 is equal to 2x plus 2. So now what we have to do is get one side, move the x's over, so I'm going to subtract 2x on both sides. So I get x minus 9 is equal to 2. And now I'm going to add 9 on both sides. So now my x equals 11. So now what we're going to do is we're going to check those values in the domain. My domain said x cannot equal negative 1 and 3. Does 11 appear in my domain? It does not. So 11 is a solution. Alright, number 2. We're going to find my LCD between every single one. And they have nothing in common, so it's 5 times x minus 4. And now we're going to cross multiply. So I get x minus 4 times x plus 5 is equal to 10. And while I'm on the side of the board, I'm going to write down my domain. My x cannot equal 4. We ignore the 5 because it does not have a value of x there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to find the value of the variable. So we're going to FOIL. Alright. And so now we have to be careful about this. We are going to combine my like terms. But if you see, we have an x squared term. So there should be fireworks going off in your head. Or as I like to say, Katy Perry is going to be singing. Because she's saying whenever you have x squared, you have to get one side equal to 0. So I get x squared plus x minus 30 is equal to 0. So the only time you get one side equal to 0 is if you see an x squared term. Now we're going to factor. Find factors of negative 30. That adds up to 1. X plus 6. X minus 5 is equal to 0. So now we're going to set each factor equal to 0, and then we solve for x. So my first one is x equals negative 6, and x equals 5. So now what we're going to do is check these values against my domain. It said x can't be positive 4. We have a negative 6 and 5. They don't appear in my domain. That's why these are my two answers. Alright, number 3. What we're going to do is we're going to find my LCD. Okay? Now, in terms of 12, 4, and 3, you want to think about the smallest number that all of them divide evenly into, and it's 12, and my domain. Now, if you notice, I do not have any x in the denominator. So my domain is actually going to be all real numbers. It can be every single one. So now you're going to multiply every single thing by your LCD because you can cancel stuff out. So 12 goes into 12 one time, and I'm left with 7x. So now this goes into itself once, and this becomes a 3. So it's plus 3 times x plus 2. Now this becomes a 4. So I'm left with 4 times 2x minus 3. So now what we're going to do is we're going to distribute. So I get 7x plus 3x plus 6 is equal to 8x minus 12. And then I'm going to combine my like terms. And now all we're going to do is solve. Subtract 8x on both sides. And then I'm going to subtract 6 on both sides. So I get 2x is equal to negative 18 divided by 2. And my x equals negative 9. So now your domain said all the numbers. We can use every single value. So x equals negative 9 is a solution. All right, number 4. So very first thing is we're going to find my LCD and then your domain. So your LCD, you want to see what they all have in common. Let's take a look at the numbers 6 and 2. So your LCM between 6 and 2 is 6. And now with your variables, you always choose the highest one. Now your domain, whenever you plain old x, it's just going to be x can't be equal to 0. So now you're going to multiply your LCD to every single fraction that you have so that you can cancel. So now my 6x squares goes away. So I get 1 equals. All right, I take out 1x. This becomes a 3, so it's 3x. And this cancels out, so I'm left with plus 7. And now what I'm going to do is solve. We're going to subtract 7 on both sides. So I get negative 6 is equal to 3x. Divide by 3. X equals negative 2. Negative 2 does not appear in my domain, so that's why that's your answer. All right, number 5. Same steps, LCD and then your domain. All right, your LCD, it doesn't matter if it's only in common in 2 of them. And then essentially this is really a 1, so really it's 1 times that. So it's just x minus 3. And now your domain is x cannot equal 3. So now you're going to multiply every single thing by your LCD. And the main reason why we do that is so that we can cancel my denominators. So in the first one, my x minus 3 goes away, so I'm left with x. My next one, there's nothing that can cancel out because that's on the bottom, this is on the top, and there's nothing to really cancel out. So it's 2 times x minus 3. And my next one, my x minus 3 cancels out, so I'm left with 3. So now we're going to distribute. And then we're going to combine my like terms. Then we're going to move my 6 over. Then we get to divide by negative 1. So my x equals positive 3. So let us take a look at that number. If you notice, it appears in my domain. It says x cannot be equal to 3. Since it says x cannot equal 3, this is not a solution. It's an extraneous solution because if you plug that value in, it doesn't work into my original problem. So since x cannot equal 3, I have no other option, so that's why it is no solution. Number 6. Very first thing is we're going to factor. We got to find factors of negative 10 that adds up to 3. And now we're going to find my LCD. And then you're going to find your domain. So you're going to see what they have in common. They have x minus 2 in common. And then that's it. So now you're going to just bring along your x plus 5. So your domain is x cannot equal positive 2 and negative 5. So now that's what you're going to multiply to every single one. You multiply your LCD to every single fraction. All 3 of them. And the main reason why we do that is to be able to cancel out the denominators. It makes them go away. So my x minus 2's cancel out, so I'm left with 2 times x plus 5. Then my x minus 2 cancels out, so I have x times x plus 5. And my next one, look at that, they both go away. So I don't have anything. except for just 6. So now we solve, okay? We're going to distribute. So I get 2x plus 10 is equal to x squared plus 5x plus 6. So we know whenever you see an x squared term, you have to get one side equal to 0. So I get 0 is equal to x squared plus 3x minus 4. And now we factor. We say what numbers multiply to negative 4 but add up to 3? X plus 4, x minus 1. And then we set each one equal to 0. And we get my 2 answers. Now, if you take a look at negative 4 and 1, does it appear in my domain? It doesn't, so that's why these 2 are definitely my answers, because it said x cannot be 2 and negative 5. All right, number 7. So what we're going to do is we're going to factor first. Say what numbers multiply to 6 but add up to 5. Now you're going to find your LCD. Then you're going to find your domain. Your LCD is x plus 2 times x plus 3. And my domain is x cannot be negative 2 and negative 3. So now you're going to multiply each one by your LCD to be able to cancel your denominator. And now we get to cancel stuff out, which is one of my favorite things. My x plus 2 goes away. So I have x times x plus 3. In the next one, they both go away. Plus 2. And in the next one, my x plus 3 cancels out, so I'm left with 5 times x plus 2. And now we're going to distribute. So I get x squared plus 3x plus 2 is equal to 5x plus 10. And now what we're going to do is subtract 5x and 10, because you got to get one side equal to 0. I see an x squared. So x squared minus 2x minus 8 is equal to 0. Factor. Set each factor equal to 0 and solve. Now what you got to do is check your domains. It says x cannot be equal to negative 2 and negative 3. 4 is not in my domain, so I got one answer. X cannot equal negative 2. Okay, so that's why that is not a solution, and we say that negative 2 is extraneous because it does not work in your original problem. All right, number 8. So what we're going to do is factor first. So we're going to find my LCD and then find my domain. My LCD is, check off what they have in common, and then write it down. And now my domain is x cannot equal 0 and negative 1. So now you multiply that to every single one that you have, every single fraction, to be able to cancel stuff out. And now this and this cancel, so I'm left with 3, plus x plus 1 cancels out, so I'm left with 3x. And my x cancels out, so I have negative 1 times x plus 1. And now we distribute. And now we solve. Divide by 4, x equals negative 1. Now negative 1 appears in my domain, and it says x cannot equal, so x cannot equal negative 1, so that means we have no solution. All right, number 9. So what we're going to do is we're going to find my LCD is x minus 2. And now my domain is x cannot equal positive 2. So you multiply every single thing by your LCD to be able to cancel stuff out. So the first one, I'm left with 5x. I can't cancel anything out here, so I have 7 times x minus 2. And then that cancels, and I'm left with 10. So now you distribute. Then we combine like terms. And now we get to solve. Uh-oh, I gotta bring down. There we go. Got more room. And divide by negative 2. So x equals positive 2. What do you notice? It's in my domain. It says x cannot equal 2. Here it says x equals. I get change that to not equal. I only have one answer that I found here, so that's why it is no solution. And then last but not least, LCD is x. And your domain, since it's just a variable of x cannot equal 0. So you're going to multiply every single thing by x to make your denominators go away. And now we get to combine my like terms. And now we solve. X equals 6. Check your domain. It says x equals does not equal 0. 6 is a different number than 0, so that's why this works. Alright, well, thank you for watching. Bye now.